Hey, hello to you again, Ando. Great to see you. It's been about 3.5 months since our last interview. So look forward to hearing how everything has been for you. And I guess let's start off in a smaller time scale. How has your day been? How has your week been? Anything to update there?
Um, you caught me early in the morning again, so thank you.
Mhm. Not as
uh,
early as last time. What last time was 5 a.m., right?
I think it was, if 5 or 6, it was pretty early.
Yeah.
This time it's 8, so it's manageable.
Yeah.
um, it's been good, man. The last couple months have been just very fruitful and rewarding, and I'm very grateful for everything that I've experienced. Some of it I've shared with the community in the real world. A lot of these people have become like my really good friends that I've never met in person yet because
Mhm.
they're all over the world.
Mhm.
But so much has changed even in the real world, like the platform, the interface, everything has dramatically been revamped. But I'll be honest, I think, okay, so the last interview was like 3.5 months ago. I think I said that I joined the Hustlers University sometime in October or November of last year. And the amount of change that's happened in my life has been pretty amazing. For me to say it was like because of only one thing would be disingenuous. I think
Mhm.
it's an accumulation of different things that I've learned, and it's compounded to the knowledge that I already had. So it's been good.
Of course. Okay, so from what I remember, last time you were the crypto sniper, making quite insane profits on a monthly basis. Am I correct in saying what was it from like 14,000 to 52,000, something along those lines,
Yeah,
in
that
one
was
month?
in a month, 30 days. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So how has that gone for you? Are you still crypto trading? Did you go to something else?
So yes, I am crypto trading, but I've changed my strategy a little bit more from like day trading because I was day trading throughout the day, like 7 to 8 hours a day I would trade. And then I switched more towards the investing side of things, which is holding positions for longer periods of time. And then you have a whole different campus for that Adam runs, who's one of the professors. The main reason why I made the switch is because I'm opening a dealership. The day to day has been so busy that if I was to day trade while having a full time, I'm building a business, I'd probably lose a lot of those gains because I'd make a lot of emotional decisions.
Mhm.
So the beautiful thing about the campus actually is that I think they've changed it to like 4 different areas now. Like you can be a scalpel, day trader, swing trader, investor. So now there's different ways you can learn to make money. So you don't necessarily have to be active throughout the day to actually get an ROI. You could just pick days, change positions, and then keep moving on. So it's similar to the closest things I can compare it to, like at least in the United States, like a 401k. You keep reinvesting in certain funds, right? And some months it's up, some months it's down, but overall it's always going up, because the trajectory is up. So from the investing standpoint, I've stayed engaged in the market. I just haven't been actively trading, day trading as much, which I will once I get my business dialed in and I have people to actually man the dealership.
Mhm. Okay, so dealership seems like a very big step. How long
Yeah.
have you been planning that, and what was the process for opening it?
So great question. So I've been in the dealership world. I've worked in dealerships for about like 14 years now. So I started when I was pretty young. I'm 35 now. But I've always been in like a general manager position or like a director position at a dealership. And then let's just say within the last 90 days, I had the opportunity to team up with certain individuals that it just kind of all came together. I don't know, out of nowhere. It just happened. And so we're opening a 300 car dealership. So it's going to be about 6.5 to $8 million in inventory, and it's going to be about 25 to 30 employees. So we've been in the midst of just putting it all together, and we have these crunch times. We're trying to launch by June 1st, which is an extremely ambitious goal, but
Mhm.
I mean, I think we're going to be able to do it. So it just takes a lot of time.
Very interesting. How much of your day goes into work relating to the dealership now then?
Majority of it, I would say, like in the mornings, I'll typically wake up. I'll look at my crypto stuff because that's when I can actually zone in. I don't have any phone calls coming in. But let's say after like 8:30 or 9, it's until like 5, 6 p.m. at least. I'm just dialed in on the dealership from buying cars. Right now, my biggest goal is to fill the inventory. So I need to buy another 200 cars in the next 3 4 weeks, which is a lot of cars in a short amount of time, but it's doable. And then I'm also trying to hire individuals, make sure the place is getting furnished, um, software is in place. So a majority of my time, as much as I'd like to say it ends at 6 p.m., it just doesn't. Like if I'm on my couch on my laptop, I'm usually working. So
Mhm. And would you be comfortable revealing how figures have scaled since 3.5 months ago?
yeah, now that my divorce is done, um, so I would say in combination between the crypto side of things and the dealership side of things, um, I had my highest grossing month I've ever had, which was just north of $100,000 in a single month. So
Congratulations, Ando.
thank you. It's
That's a
it's
lot of
it's actually
people's
pretty
dreams.
surreal to even hear that me saying it because it doesn't seem real.
Mhm. So yeah, great to hear. Love to hear it. So last time, you've basically over doubled what you were making from 3.5 months ago, if
Yeah,
I'm correct in saying so.
yeah.
And
It's.
how much of that can you relate to the real world?
I mean, the as a percentage, I would say 30 to 50%. And here's why. Okay, so I came into the real world with actual skill sets, right? I think most people have a certain level of skill sets that it's their God given talents, right? And in a way, even though I was focused on the crypto side of things, there's all these other campuses you can go into, like business mastery, freelancing, copywriting, creators campus, right? So like it just really depends on where you want to go, e-commerce, right? And so I already knew I had real life skill sets that was paying me a decent amount of money, and I really doubled down on going through the courses for the business mastery and even on the creator campus stuff and how you can actually put yourself out there as an individual who's an expert in a certain field, right? And I can't attribute it to one thing or another, but I could say doors started opening for me more. Whether it was because I was more confident in myself to approach bigger deals, right? Like this dealership it's going to be a 50 to 75 million dollars of revenue dealership a year, which is a huge business. And I've worked in businesses that are that big, if not bigger. But to be part of something like this that I get to start now from scratch, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't attribute it to age because I'm still young. I'm 35, but I
Mhm.
think just being an immigrant coming from nothing and just moving to the States, when I was very young, like 12, and to be at this point in my life is very humbling for myself. So I'm trying to like digest it all. But if someone was to ask me like, what is the greatest benefit that you got from the real world, right? It wouldn't be that I made a bunch of money at the crypto campus. It wouldn't be any of that stuff. What it would be is that I finally have like a sense of community, and it's individuals that truly want the best for you. And you can see it just from the professors, even just the captains, right? Like the amount of engagement that they have with you is pretty amazing. So if you let's say I made a statement about a position that I'm holding in crypto, the beautiful thing is they're not gonna, even if I'm right, they're still gonna challenge me as to why I think the way I do, right? Because they want me to understand my thinking even more so, because they want me to be even more successful. And so when you have that kind of a group, it just makes it more difficult to lose.
Mhm.
So I think the greatest benefit that I've gotten from the real world is the sense of camaraderie and just community.
Right. And it's a flex positive environment. So in other places, let's say you'd post in a friend's group chat, oh, look, guys, I made this much money. And then you don't know how they're truly feeling. They're probably, some of them might be getting jealous behind the scenes or
Totally.
something along those lines. Whereas in the real world, it's super positive, super supportive. Everyone
Right.
loves to see other people winning. And they even use that as motivation to then win themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. It's there's a saying, right? Like, careful who you share good news with, and I believe in that because I think most people, as much as I'd like to believe that they truly want the best for others, I think unless they're in a position where they can be around you and be in the same pursuit, they're less likely to be rooting for your success. And it's, it might be a pessimistic view of things, but I look at it as a motivator. So the real world is one of the only places where you can share good news, because there's a win section and everyone shares a lot of their good news, right? And you're supposed to celebrate it. It's all about that. So I appreciate it a lot.
All right. And how has your fitness developed in those 3.5 months? Still consistent on everything?
Definitely. The one thing I'm consistent is definitely the fitness side of things. Even if it's 30 minutes a day, I try to get it in, even if it's in my living room,
Yeah.
It's one of the only things that I would say that if I was to give advice to a younger person, I would say, even if you have nothing, right? If you just started on the fitness side of things and you just kept the little promises that you make every day, which is, you know what, I'm going to do 15 minutes of a workout, even if it's just walking outside. If you could just start accumulating those little wins and keeping those promises to yourself, it really transfers into other parts of your life. And a lot of that is subconscious. You don't even realize it because you've programmed yourself to actually behave that way now. And so with fitness, if someone was to ask me, I'd say, I'll be honest, I don't like going to the gym working out, but I know it's a necessary evil. I just have to do it. Because if I want a certain lifestyle, if I want a certain level of health, I know it's a necessary evil. And there's never been a time that I've worked out that I felt like, oh my God, I regret this shit. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. It's what easy decisions lead to a harder life, and harder decisions lead to an easy life long time.
Totally.
Like simplifying, but yeah, along those lines.
Absolutely.
Okay, so since you're on this trajectory now, where do you see your life heading in, let's say, 6 months to 1 year, or feel free to give me a different time frame if you wish.
So aside from just the dealership side of things, I'm in the process of developing this app. And we just started this, which I think is going to be a big game changer in the automotive industry. And I figure the dealership, after we launch, we're going to do about 30 to 40 million the first year, just because scaling is difficult to do. Like, unless you have everything plug and play right away, like you have the 300 cars, you have your staff fully, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to do it like that. So you progressively have to scale the business so it's sustainable. I think by, let's say, next June, I think the dealership will do close to $30 million of revenue. And that should be about, $3 million of net profit that in 1 year. Outside of that, we're building an app that I think is going to be very transformative. My goal is to solve a lot of the problems that are very archaic and dinosaurish in the automotive industry, because the automotive industry, unfortunately, has a hard time evolving with technology. And so we have the funds to do this. So I think within a year, I'm hoping that the app's going to have at least 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers. And ultimately, the goal is to scale the app. And I know when you become a bigger fish in the pond, then the big dogs come to you and they want to buy you out typically, because they don't want competition, or at least that's the only way they can actually grow, And so I'm not saying we would sell the business in that short amount of time, but I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be a big disruption in the industry with the app alone. As far as my personal life, the next year, I think I'm going to end up buying I already bought 40 acres of land, so I want to build a ranch. Okay. I bought 40 acres in Wyoming. And so my goal was to build a ranch there. And so I'm either going to do it there, or I'm going to look for land in Montana and then just start building my ranch that I want to have, So that's been one of my childhood dreams. Ever since I've been a kid, I've thought, like, what's cooler than having a ranch with big land, right? And having like the Batman garage and you have supercars in there, right? It's like nobody would expect it. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm a good balance between the two. I like the nice stuff, but then I like the simple life as well. So I want to start that process. So I've already got the land in Wyoming, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to that land and then buy more land in Montana. because that's where ideally I'd want to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, are the ranches for retirement or just to spend some months there at a time?
Um, Not retirement. I don't think I'll ever retire. It's more of I do a lot of my work from home, for example, right? What's better than being in the concrete jungle where there's a bunch of buildings around you? I'd rather work out of my own ranch, and being in nature and just
Mhm.
just being more relaxed about things. So I wouldn't say I would be there 12 months out of the year, but I would say certainly good 5 or 6.
Right. So,
Yeah.
since you said you'd never retire and you're doing so much as well, app, dealership, crypto,
Yeah.
what would you say to people who call that excessive? And also, where do you think that mindset comes from of you wanting to work so much?
Um, it's a good question. I think I battled that at some point in my life. I would have individuals that would tell me, "You're doing too much. How do you even manage that?" And I don't believe in the word excess. Okay, it's like saying, "Do you have enough money?" The answer is no. And they'd say, "Well, that's very greedy, right? Like it's very selfish." I'd say, "No, because if I have more money, I'm going to give more of it away, so the world benefits." So is it greedy, or is it actually of benefit to others? And so my goal isn't to do all these things because I want money. My goal in doing all of this is because I know I'm capable of so much more, and if I don't keep at it, I'm going to lose that edge. You know, I've read so many books about even just billionaires who get to a point where they're like, I just sold my company for a couple billion. I'm going to retire, and within a couple of years, they're very depressed because they've lost meaning in life because they've stopped working and building on something. It doesn't matter what it is. So my choice is building businesses right now. But later on, I might not be in the businesses. I might be just building cabinets for fun, right? Like it's all about always building something. It doesn't matter what it is. So to me, I'm building businesses right now. The byproduct is, yeah, I will, hopefully have more money from it, and that money will allow me to buy my time back, so I have more freedom. And then when I have that freedom, I get to decide how I spent that time. And then if that time means that I get to spend more time with my family because I don't have to be in office or a meeting, I've won. Like I think that is the ultimate way of being able to be in control of your life. So I don't believe in excess. I think it's just a trajectory in life that you pick and you kind of go for it. I think it's the same idea where people will work 9 to 5, but then they'll go home and they'll drink a beer and they'll smoke cigarettes, whatever it is, for the next 3 4 hours and watch Netflix. I would say, well, isn't that an excess?
Mhm.
It is, right? So it's all relative to the person's life and what they want out of it. Um, and to follow up to your secondary question, where does it? I think you said, where does it come from?
Yeah, that mindset.
I think a lot of it comes from scarcity. I think, especially if you come from nothing, it's a place that you don't want to go back to. A deep down, I've always thought, like even if I went back to zero, I would be fine because I've been at zero, so it doesn't scare me. But do I want to go back to zero? No, absolutely not. I don't. I don't want any part of that zero. Like I don't want that. I know that I can have so much more in life now. And the mental edge that you get when you realize that most people don't even realize the opportunity that they actually have, even if it's 1 hour a day that they spent doing something extra, that accumulates. And then in a year, that's 365 extra hours that you put into something. It's a lot of time.
Right. It's hard to envision something like that accumulating, especially when you don't have a solid direction of where you're heading. But yeah, people really don't realize just how much is possible if they consistently put in some work every single day into something.
Totally, totally. And I think it goes back to the when you were asking me about fitness. Fitness is a good example of this. It's one of the most delayed gratification sacrifices, right? You could go work out for a month, you might see slight difference, right? But if you were to gauge on a day-to-day basis, there's nothing. It's
Mhm.
not substantial enough for you to actually look in the mirror and be like, "Whoa, look at that difference." So My boy was asking me the other day. He's like, Dad, how do I grow big muscles? I was like, dude, like, you're 9, you're not gonna have big muscles. Second, like, you might want to do some like curls, like start with curls. No, all joking aside, I just told him, I said, buddy, like, it's an accumulation. Like, you just can't look at it as every single day. You just know, like, every day you put in the time, and then within months, years, you look back, you're like, wow, like, this is me. This is the new version of me. And that's
Mhm.
the same thing with business and anything else that you do. You can't constantly gauge your success on like one win or one loss. You just kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. And eventually you analyze things on a quarterly basis, half year, yearly basis, and then you get to decide if you want to stay on that course or not. But to make rash decisions in a short amount of time, it's just you're gonna end up living the same life over and over again.
Right. And then outside of just the physical aspect of fitness, is huge for clearing up your mind and allowing you to really be more productive in day to day as well.
Yep, totally,
And,
totally. I I think from I call it like callousing your mind. You know how you have a calluses right here? Like if you
Mhm.
lift enough weights, you'll get these calluses. So when you do certain things that challenge you mentally and you don't want to do them, but you do it anyway, what you're doing is you're essentially callousing your mind in a way where you the next time becomes easier. And the next time becomes easier. And so over time, it becomes something that you just naturally do. Like I was telling you, I don't really like going to work out the gym. I don't, but I don't go without it. It's just one of those things where that inner voice that you have is so much more quieter now than it was before. You know which one I'm talking about? Where it's like, oh, you
Yeah.
could rest, you could just you're tired, this, that, right?
Mhm.
It's it never goes away. It gets more quiet over time.
Right. And you also learn to just ignore it. Let's say you really don't feel like going to the gym. It doesn't matter. All you really need to do is just put on your clothes and go out through the door. Maybe when you sit in your car, by that point, it's too late to turn back. So you just start going to the gym anyway. Then you're at
Yeah,
the gym and you might as well just work out at that point. So you don't even, it's the same as with maybe working. You don't envision the end goal. You just focus on what you can do right now.
totally.
And all of that will compound.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
that's all we can control is the now, right? So that's why I think the idea of compound makes perfect sense. If I can just control what I do right now and I focus on that, tomorrow's going to come, right? And tomorrow you can repeat the same thing that you didn't want to do yesterday. And all of a sudden it becomes a habit. And all of a sudden you have one extra thing that you didn't think you could actually have. So,
Mhm. Now, on a separate note,
yeah,
what kind of an impact would you say Tate has had on you?
huge, and I think a lot of it is because, and I could be wrong about this, but this is my assumption, okay? I think oftentimes, because I can only speak from a male's perspective, because I'm a guy, right? Oftentimes, especially in this society, if you're raised a certain way, like I come from an Armenian background, like Patrick Bet David, for example, like he's Armenian, and we're also like an honor culture. We're like the Italians and the Irish, so we believe in respect and chivalry, all that stuff, right? And gender roles, those things are important to us. Um, but in the Western society, because I live in the U.S., as a man, it's become a lot more difficult to actually voice very common beliefs that are predominant in the world. And what Tate does is states the most obvious in a very blunt way. And to me, it resonates with me because that is me. Like that's how I communicate my messages. Um, there is he has a video I watched a while ago, and he was talking about what happens to a man in America and how like a man's life in America is already predetermined at birth. And it's like, you're born, you go to school, after school, you go to college, after college, you're already in debt, right? You're like $100,000 in debt because of student loans. You get married, you have kids, you buy a house, your wife cheats on you, she divorces you, even though she cheated on you. She takes the kids, she takes the house, you pay child support and alimony because you've been providing for the family, because in America, that's just how it is. And then you are basically broken, you have to start over. And I thought, well, that's kind of like what happened to me in a way, outside of the wife cheating on me. That's what happened. I lost almost $500,000 in 3 years during a divorce. So p- he says the unpopular things, but the unpopular things are also the truth. And so he talks about just like being somebody, believing in yourself, put the porn down, stop, doing things that are degenerate, stop smoking weed, stop doing drugs. Like, I can't imagine that a family where you have children that you wouldn't teach them those same very principles. Like, that's what I teach my kids. I have a 8-year-old boy and a 4-year-old daughter. That's the exact same things that I would teach them. And unfortunately, the media and people focus on all the things that they don't agree with. And my answer to that is this: do I agree with everything that Tate says? No. But do I expect that everyone's going to agree with everything that I believe in? No. Does that mean I'm a bad person? No. Because it's very disingenuous to think that all of a sudden, because we disagree with 1% of what he says, the 99% is completely discredited. It's an absurd notion, an absurd way of actually believing in things. So um, I think he's an incredible role model, especially for males. But if even if you were a female, right? I think he's a great role model in the sense that he's building up men who actually are going to be accountable. Who are going to be more high value. They're going to be more productive members of society. They're going to be more chivalrous. They're going to be more protectors, the less degenerates. So, if anything, I would think women would actually appreciate that a lot more,
Mhm.
because that's exactly what I think what they're looking for in a man. They want all those traits.
And as for, not agreeing with what Tate says, that's where critical thought comes in. You can take the things that are useful and just
Absolutely.
not internalize the things that maybe you don't agree with. It's the same as with everything. So, yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Okay. And why do you not want to move out of the US? Is that something you've not considered?
I've considered it. I think the United States is a great place to build wealth. I really do believe that. I think it's a great, like, if I was to start over again, I'd start over in the United States again. Even though there's global platforms and you can make money in very different ways, right? I totally agree with that. But I think in the United States you have the greatest amount of options for wealth creation. And if you were taught how to utilize that at an early age, yeah, you could build all that wealth and be done by 40 and you can move out. And I'm not opposed to the idea of moving, out of the country. I mean, I have so much family in Armenia. I lived in Bulgaria for 7 years, right next to the Black Sea, in a port city in Burgas, and I loved life over there as well. But I would say, from a standpoint of just being able to come up, the United States is just it's a good place. And here's the other thing: if you live in a conservative state, you don't get to see a lot of the degeneracy of the other states. So Utah is a pretty conservative, Republican, family oriented, religious state, mostly Mormons, which are part of Christianity in a way. You have a lot of states that are conservative, and they believe in family values. They believe in certain gender roles. They believe in a man being a man, carrying a gun, being able to be a protector and provider. All those things. So I live in a state where I get to actually live that.
Mhm.
Let's say I lived in New York or California. I mean, I go to California every month to do business. Right? Beautiful. I love visiting there. I love going to the ocean. They have great restaurants and stuff. The quality of life is very poor though. There's just so much chaos and confusion. Like, I would never want to raise children there. So it's a great question though. I would never be opposed to the idea. uh, I think that comes with time. Eventually, I mean, for me, that version of moving out of the country is having my own ranch off the grid and just kind of living my life on my own terms.
Mhm. Yeah, I was very interested to see your perspective on it because usually anyone I speak to from US, maybe Canada, most of them want to move out somewhere, maybe Dubai or somewhere
Yeah,
else in Europe as well. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that. If you're saying the conservative stage still have their things together, then that's good. That's good to hear.
yeah. Even to just circle back on that point, during like COVID, where there was like lockdowns, for example, Utah was one of the few states that there was no real like mandates. We didn't really do what the world was doing. And so
Mhm.
I appreciate that a lot. There was no vaccine mandates. There was no passport fucking bullshit experimental stuff, like there was none of that stuff.
Mhm.
And to me, I was like, I'm in the right place for the most part. I'm not saying it can't change, but in the meantime, it seems to be pretty solid.
Good. Okay, that's good to hear. So it was great catching up with you, Ando. I have
Likewise.
one last question for you. So, with your experience within the real world, what advice would you have to people who are considering joining, but they're thinking, what if it's a scam for $50?
It's a great question because even to me, it sounded like a scam for $50. Even I think in the previous interview we talked about how I'd spent thousands on like master classes on like these coaching groups, right? And it gives you this false perceived notion that because you pay more, it's more real. But I couldn't tell you how further from the truth that is, at least from my experience now. Um, I will tell you this. No, it's not a scam, not even close. And I still don't understand why it's only $49 a month. Maybe I understand it because access for around the world, $50 is a lot of money for certain people in certain countries. So I understand that. But if you live in the United States, Canada, and any of these first world countries, $50 is really your budget for Starbucks a week. I mean, I just went and got coffee. A black coffee was like $4, right? It's just black coffee, and the fancy drinks are like $10. So, um, my advice to them would be is first and foremost, $50. I know they even talk about like if you come into the campus for $50 and you don't get what you thought you were going to get, they'll refund you your money. So you really don't have much to lose right there, because they want there's no false advertisement when it comes to promoting the real world. Everything that I've seen, even the videos, a lot of those people are in my campus, and I know exactly that they're telling the truth because I see it because we share ideas and all this other stuff. But if $50 is too much to invest in yourself and you get to learn, I think it's not even eight wealth creation method. I think it's like 11 now. I think they just expanded.
I think in total 18.
Is it 18 now?
Yeah.
All I know is that far left navigation bar is full for me. It's all it's,
Yeah.
it's just very long.
And then within those campuses, there's different methods. That's why it's more than just what's on the left. So,
That makes sense. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. But back to the point, like if $50 is too much to invest in yourself, then you don't really deserve success. I truly believe in that. Um, $50 is such a small sacrifice for you to learn or at least find out what you could be missing. Every single thing that I've only been involved in 4 campuses: the freelancing, the business mastery, and the crypto. I did dab into the creators campus at some point, but I just realized I didn't have the time for it, so I just bowed out. And that's a personal choice. Everyone gets to make that choice for themselves. But just from the business mastery standpoint, uh, Arno, who's the professor there, the amount of content that he's posted in videos and just pure direction. I've been in masterminds that I've paid 2 to 3 grand a month, and I've gotten maybe 5% of that in those masterminds. It's truly unbelievable. And here's the other thing that is the kicker. Usually in these situations, the captains and the professors are off limits. The only time you get to talk to them is like once a week if they do like a live call and they might do a Q&A. That is not the case with the real world. If you have a question and you tag the professor, they're going to answer you. There's just no other way around it. And to have access to people who are millionaires and actually are doing, exactly what they're preaching, there is a substantial amount of weight to that. I gave this example. I've actually had so many people join that I've been close with. And I've told them, I'm like, listen, I'm not an expert in being in relationships. Okay. I'm not. But I'm an expert in other areas of my life. So if I was to want to learn about a relationship, I would want to go to somebody first who's had a successful relationship, and two, who has the relationship that I would want, and I want to learn from them. The real world is that platform because the people actually are living this life. So if they're teaching you something, they're actually doing it. And so it's not some professor at a school who's reading you a book that might have had a business 35 years ago. It's a professor who's teaching you things that are up to date, cutting edge, and they're doing it right now. And I don't know how that's not of incredible value.
So great answer, Ando, and I mean a very extensive pitch from you there. Even calling it pitch is the wrong phrasing. Maybe it is. I mean, you're speaking from what you believe. So yeah.
Totally, I do.
And it's stuff I've heard from a lot of other people who I've interviewed, pretty much most of them. So yeah, same thing. So yeah.
It's awesome.
And man, that was a fast 35 minutes. So thank you very much for your time, Ando. And I look forward to part 3 in another 3 to 4 months.
Awesome. I appreciate you and your time, man. Good seeing you.